Hi, it's Tom with Digital Foundry taking a look at The Last of Us running on PS4 Pro. Patch 1.07 is already out for this game, meaning we have PS4 Pro compatibility on the console's launch plus HDR support, which you can enable in-game via a toggle. But what I wanted to talk about today is the frame rate, and specifically how the game runs in its 60fps mode. Now, according to Sony's blueprint for PS4 Pro, no game should feature worse performance than the original machine. Bearing in mind The Last of Us struggled to hold a solid 60fps on standard PS4 hardware, we went in hoping the Pro might smooth it over. But from what we've discovered today, that's just not the case at all. Right, so the good news first. When you run The Last of Us in its 60fps mode, selectable in-game as usual, the good news is you get a native 3200 by 1800 from the game. That's really decent, a huge leap over the base PS4's 1080p, and it goes one better if you switch to the game's 30fps mode, where it then renders at a true native 4K resolution. It's an incredible feat, and we'll be tackling 30fps performance at the end of this analysis, but for now we're focusing on the 60fps mode at 1800p, and the results we have to say are disappointing right now. The bad news then is The Last of Us runs at a worse frame rate when played on PS4 Pro. Sure, it'll hold 60fps for long stretches, but it's clear the jump to 1800p is too ambitious even for the console's beefed up GPU. Simply put, it adds drops to 50fps in places where there were none before, and accentuates the drops around stress points we already had on the original PS4. Quite often we're looking at a 5fps difference in match scenes, with PS4 Pro worse off. That's a massive disappointment, and Naughty Dog's priorities really should have been with locking down 60fps tightly with this extra hardware muscle. The fact of the matter is, PS4 Pro has a hefty 2.3 times boost in GPU power to work with, but The Last of Us has opted to boost the pixel count by 2.78 times in this 60fps mode, something it clearly isn't comfortable doing when targeting this fast refresh. Now, it's worth mentioning the core visual makeup of the game is identical to how it appears on the standard PS4. Outside of the resolution bump, all the textures, filtering settings, lighting quality are exactly as you remember them. Even the lower resolution shadow maps are used in 60fps mode while played on Pro, which is a shame because we'd hoped to see the cleaner 30fps mode shadows used universally. Ultimately, we can look at this 1800p resolution as the culprit for worse performance. The fact we see the biggest drops around intensive alpha transparency effects shows the bottleneck is on the GPU allocated memory bandwidth more than anything else. Okay then, but what happens when we force PS4 Pro to output at 1080p? Does the game recover its original performance level when there's no obligation to run at these higher resolutions? Well, this is where things get a bit ugly. Because if we switch from the 2160p option in the console's video menu to a straight 1080p, there is no difference whatsoever. Check this out, we're running through the same prologue stress test with lots of explosions, and we're still dropping to the same mid 50fps point. In other words, even when forcing PS4 Pro to output at 1080p, it still runs at a lower frame rate than the standard PS4 model. The output resolution may have changed, but The Last of Us will still render at 1800p internally with 60fps selected, and simply downsample to 1080p. The hardware is still being strained in the exact same way, and likewise if you switch to the 30fps mode, the console is rendering natively at 4K and downsampling to that 1080p output. It's great if you want a nicely super sampled image, and the game has never looked this crisp, but the fact is on PS4 Pro hardware, you have zero options for matching the original PS4's performance. The readout is always the same regardless of what you do in the video settings. It bears out across all the scenes we've tested, and really for those expecting a smooth 60fps from the console, as I did, you might want to hold back for now. The silver lining to all of this is the 30fps mode. Now, I accept there's no substituting for the smooth 60fps playback, but the reality is you're getting a true native 4K in this mode, and with the upgraded shadow maps as well. And the amazing thing is the frame rate so far has been absolutely rock solid at 30, despite quadrupling the pixel count over the standard PS4. This mode feels better optimized for its intended purpose, the best picture quality possible at a half refresh that doesn't waver even in the most stressful scenes we saw at 60fps. Now, it's worth noting there's still some issues with the game's lighting buffer, which creates aliasing on brightly lit edges, but generally the game looks razor sharp. The verdict here is straightforward then. The Last of Us's PS4 Pro patch is a double-edged sword. Frustratingly, if no patch existed, the game would run in the console's base PS4 mode, meaning identical frame rate levels to the original hardware. The fact Naughty Dog has pushed the boat out means we do get incredible image quality, fulfilling the promise of the console by hitting a native 4K or 1800p in 60fps mode. The downside is we've taken a step back in smoothness, and maybe a resolution like 1440p would have been better suited for the 60fps option. Either way, it's worth bearing in mind patch 1.07 is out day one for PS4 Pro, and it's very possible there may be another around the corner to improve this, though it's not guaranteed. We really hope to see this addressed, and we'll let you know as soon as anything changes. Right, so that's a wrap from me. Not the best of news, I realise, but these are the results right now. If you did find this information useful, please do let us know by liking and subscribing below, and until next time, thanks for watching.
More on the way. Barricade the doors. This ain't gonna hold him for long. That don't sound good.
What the fuck is that?
Goddamn floater!
What?
Ellie, take cover. I got this. Ellie, just stay away from it.